Well, this is a very interesting and dense gospel reading. There are three key plots within this one story, and all of them have to do with the forms of healing, new life, a new lease on life, deliverance from pain and suffering. You might wonder, okay, Pharisees, why do you hate tax collectors so much? Like, this guy just up and followed Jesus out of nowhere. Jesus said, follow me. And he's like, man, forget this. I'm just going to go do this thing. Like, giving up his entire life work. Well, raise your hand if you like doing your taxes.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if IRS is a happy acronym for you. Do you like to hear the IRS? Well, I do only when I get a refund back, but not when I find out that because I didn't take out my taxes the way I was supposed to, that I owed $4,000 a few years ago. Now, allegedly, the IRS is on the up and up. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But what if the IRS not only took out the taxes that you owed, but also forced you to pay double what you owed? And worse, if you didn't pay that double part, there could be threats against your family, your friends, your safety, or your home. How would that make you feel?
Not good.
Raise your hand if angry, violent thoughts might spring into your mind if that happened to you. Yeah, me too. Yep. Now imagine that you are in a country where another country has taken over and has taken people from your own community that are part of your family and made them the ones who double the taxes on you. Or they made them tax collectors and they decided to take money from you because they could. How much more angry would you be? Pretty angry. So you can understand why the Pharisees were kind of like, why is this prophet eating with these people? It's the worst of corruption because it's not only taking money from poor people, but it's also your own people taking money from you that's more than what you owe for people who already treat you badly. But Jesus sees this man and says, follow me. An invitation. And Matthew could stay with that life, but he decided to up and leave, leaving it all behind. Now, something tells me that Matthew probably was not happy with his life or with the work he was doing. He probably might have gotten into it at one point thinking, yeah, I'm going to make some money. If you can't beat him, join him. And then it began to crush his soul. Have you ever had to do work that crushed your soul? Most people have in their lives. And if you haven't, thanks be to God. So Jesus is giving Matthew a new lease on life that is liberation from the trapping that Martin Luther King describes as the oppression that oppresses both the oppressed and the oppressor, because the system is what is hurting people. And then as this is happening, then in comes the synagogue leader. Now talk about a respected individual. This would be like your local rector or your local rabbi. And says, please, my daughter just died, but if you will heal her, if you'll resurrect her, she'll be okay. He's like, all right, cool, let's go. Goes to the house, dismisses the professional mourners, and they laughed at him. It's like, she's not dead, she's just asleep. They're like, this weirdo. She's been dead for hours. What is wrong with you? But resurrection happens. New life is given. God answers this rabbi's needs and gives new life. But the third story, the one that is completely unexpected, is one that doesn't always get a lot of attention, but is let's just say a very intimate story. As a male, there are certain things that I will never have to experience or endure or be blessed with all in one way or another. And one of those is this menstruation cycle. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but the reality is the times that I gave blood and lost a pint of blood, I was like, I need some sugar, I need something. And then Gwen was like, yeah, imagine that once a month. And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point. Now, imagine if instead of the normal process, This woman has been like hemorrhaging blood for 12 years, every month. It's amazing that she's still alive, particularly in the first century. And specifically because I have no experience of what that is like, it's like, well, how do I preach on that? And also, like, how do we examine what it means that this woman was just like, I have done everything I can. Have you ever been frustrated by going to doctors, hoping they can give you a remedy for something that is literally taking the life out of you? And they're like, well, we can't help you. She spent all of her money on doctor's bills. That doesn't sound familiar at all, does it? And in her desperation, but also in the audacity of her courage, she said, you know what? I'm not going to ask him to heal me. I'm not going to embarrass myself once more. I'm already humiliated with this. If I can just touch his tzitzit. Now, the hem of his robe is more than just, my coattails. The robes that the Jewish people would wear had tassels hanging off the end to remind them of the Torah. In fact, most rabbis nowadays, particularly in the Orthodox communities, always have loose dangling bits from their prayer shawls. That's because of that. She just reaches out and tries to touch those tzitzit. She's calling on the authority and power and a reminder of God's holy law to give her healing. And again, how many years has she been bleeding? 12. Numerology once again. So there's much significance here. Now, I have to confess, I prefer Mark's gospel's rendition of the story, because in this one, she touches the robe and Jesus goes, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. But in Matthew's gospel, okay, imagine you're in a crowd. You're at a concert. You're at, you're in San Francisco during a big parade or something like that. People are pushing up in and on against you and touching everyone at every possible angle. And Jesus is walking along with his disciples in this crowd, and suddenly he goes, wait, who touched me? Now, I'm inclined to agree with his disciples. Like, Jesus, you're in a crowd of people. How can you say who touched me? Everyone is touching you. What are you on about? Jesus was like, no. Power went out of me. Someone had intention. And the woman, fearful, goes up to Jesus and says, it was me. And he's like, good on you. Your faith has made you well. The term can also be translated as your faith has saved you. Not necessarily in salvation from sin and death, or not from sin, but literally being healed because she had the faith, the active willingness to take that risk is what literally saved her life from dying of blood loss. The fact that betrayers, sick women, and then dying girls are all the people that are the protagonists of the story is a powerful statement that ties into that one line from Hosea 6:6 that is also echoed in Isaiah several times. Go and ponder what this means. I have desired mercy, not sacrifice. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Because you can make all the sacrifices in the world. You can pledge all the money in the world to church. You can do all these great activities and this and that and the other. But if there's no love in our hearts, there's no compassion for people to be able to be given healing, redemption, literal life again, we are not doing what the sacrifices are there to do. Now, don't get me wrong. Keep pledging, keep doing your things, keep showing up to church. This is not an either or. But what Jesus is trying to point to is these things are the means to this end. Everything that the Torah commands is pointing us towards relationship with God. Everything that Jesus taught, everything that he did, his death, his resurrection, are all means to building reconciling relationships for all of us. And so, what is the common factor, though? Doing something. Faith. Faith is a verb. We faith. Matthew faithed by following Jesus. The woman that was hemorrhaging faithed by being willing to reach out and touch his tzitzit and get the healing from him. And Jesus was willing, the synagogue leader was willing to go all the way to Jesus, even though his daughter had died already. He said, I know that if you come here, she will be okay. And Jesus said, let's go. You get it. You get it. And that not everybody who is in need of God's love are people that we're going to like, respect, or even want around. But that's the gospel. That's the message that Jesus brings. That is a truth that Jesus requires of us. Is that we expand our horizons, take off our blinders, and think about how do we see where God is trying to build deeper relationship with people, whether we like them or not. Because some of these characters are much more sympathetic than others. But if you're well, you don't need a physician. But if you're well, you can go help the sick with the physician. But if you're well, why would you deny the physician to the sick? And just because we are taught that some people are more important than others doesn't make that so. I mean, that's the interesting thing about this woman. I'm pretty sure she was not able to move around much in her life or be connected with the people around her. But Jesus said, good on you. Bless you. Okay. Go for 3. We are in a world right now that has so much sickness, just like it's always been. We are in a world right now where there are plenty of people that it's easy to equate to the tax collectors. And we would actually be correct in equating them. I'm not going to mince words. There are some really bad people out there. Not like you don't know this, but it's okay to be angry with them. In fact, it's a healthy thing to be angry about those things. And how do we be the physician's assistant in the world? In what ways can we bring healing rather than more venom? How do we pay attention to when people are asking for our help where we can help them? And when are we willing to risk the vulnerability of asking for that help when we need that help? And where is resurrection and new life possible, where people are scorning us and laughing at us because we believe that there is more life there than they think there is? Resurrected life is messy. It's painful sometimes. It's hard. It's beautiful. It's the thing that makes life fully worth living. And that is what the story reminds us of, is that was a main piece of what Jesus was doing. You need some redemption? Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your way? Come follow me. You need healing? Take a chance on it. You desperately want your child to live? Let's see what we can do to make that happen. You've given up on this life as being over and done with? Maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should see where there's more possibility. It's that hope that's really hard to maintain. And it's that hope that is our calling. May we be those physician's assistants to our physician who is calling us to heal the sick. And when we are made well, to give that back to others. Amen.